Human, surrender, and your people will survive. Humans don't surrender. We survive, and we fight.
What if everything you know about power in the universe is wrong? What if the beings we think control the galaxy are not in control at all? Right now, across multiple dimensions and hidden star systems, an ancient alien species watches everything. They have been watching for thousands of years. Nobody knows they exist. The Galactic Council believes they run everything. They are wronged. They are terrified because they just discovered the truth. This story will reveal 3 shocking things you never expected. First, the hidden species that secretly holds all galactic power has been invisible the entire time. Second, humanity becomes the only force capable of exposing them. Third, when the truth comes out, everyone in power panics. This is not fantasy. According to this science fiction narrative, this is how cosmic hierarchies actually work. The greatest powers hide in plain sight. The beings that run everything never show their faces. And when someone finally discovers who they are, the galactic order collapses completely. Everything changes in moments. Civilizations fall. Alliances shatter. And humanity, the species nobody took seriously, becomes the key to everything. Let me show you exactly how this incredible story unfolds, and why it will make you see the universe completely differently. The story begins in a place nobody expects. Deep in the Andromeda Galaxy, on a world that does not appear on any official star charts, there exists a species unlike anything the Galactic Council has ever encountered. They are called the Architects. They have been alive for over 50,000 years. Most beings in the galaxy have no idea they exist at all. The Architects are not like other aliens. They do not build massive space stations. They do not command enormous fleets of warships. They do not declare themselves as rulers or demand worship from lesser species. Instead, they work in silence. They watch. They observe. They guide events from the shadows without anyone noticing. This is their greatest strength. Power without visibility. Control without attention. Influence without responsibility. For thousands of years, the Galactic Council believed they were in charge of everything. The Council consisted of the most powerful species in known space. They made laws. They controlled trade routes. They decided which civilizations could advance and which would remain primitive. The Council was proud of their authority. They believed their power was absolute. But they were wrong about everything. The Architects had been controlling the Galactic Council the entire time. They placed certain leaders in power. They influenced major decisions through whispers and subtle suggestions. When conflicts erupted, the Architects guided those conflicts towards specific outcomes that benefited their long-term plans. When new species developed dangerous technologies, the Architects ensured those technologies fell into the right hands or were destroyed entirely. The Council never understood why events always seemed to work out perfectly. They never realized they were puppets dancing to an invisible tune. This all changed when humanity entered the galactic stage. Humanity was young. Humanity was primitive compared to the ancient civilizations already established. Humanity was not supposed to matter. But humans had something different inside them. They had unpredictability. They had creativity that did not follow established patterns. They had a drive that could not be controlled or predicted by any known formula. The Architects noticed this immediately. A human explorer named Marcus discovered something strange while mapping an uncharted region of space. He found an ancient data terminal inside an abandoned space station. The terminal contained encrypted files that nobody had accessed in over 3,000 years. Marcus was curious. Most humans would have left it alone. Most humans would have reported it to the authorities. But Marcus was different. He decided to crack the encryption himself. Inside those files was the truth. Marcus found detailed records of the Architect species. He found evidence of their manipulation of galactic affairs. He found proof that every major conflict, every technological breakthrough, Every civilization's rise and fall had been orchestrated by the architects from the beginning. The files contained star charts showing the architects' hidden stations scattered throughout the galaxy. The files showed their communication networks. The files revealed their ultimate goal. The architects were preparing something massive, something that would reshape the entire universe. Marcus could not believe what he was reading. He made copies of the files. He encrypted them with codes that only other humans could understand. He knew that if the Galactic Council discovered he had this information, he would disappear. He knew that the architects would eliminate him without hesitation. So Marcus did something incredibly brave. He started sharing the information carefully. He contacted other humans scattered across different worlds. He explained what he had found. He explained who was really in control. Other humans began investigating. They found more evidence. They discovered more hidden architect stations. They uncovered more proof of manipulation and control that had been happening for millennia. The humans realized they had stumbled onto the biggest secret in galactic history. But they also realized that knowing this secret made them targets. The architects did not like being exposed. The Galactic Council did not like discovering they were not actually in charge. The architects sent their elite killers to stop Marcus. These were not ordinary assassins. These were beings bred specifically for one purpose. They were faster than any known species. They were stronger than any recorded fighter. They were trained in combat techniques that had been perfected over 10,000 years. Nobody had ever survived an encounter with the architects' killers. Nobody had ever even seen them and lived to describe what they looked like. But Marcus and the humans with him had something that no previous target possessed. They had hope. They had determination. They had each other. And most importantly, they had access to the architect's own hidden technology. The hunt was on. The galaxy was about to change forever. The news about the architects did not stay secret for long. Despite humanity's attempts to share the information quietly, rumors began spreading across the galaxy like wildfire. Traders talked about it. Pilots discussed it. Scientists started investigating independently. Within weeks, billions of beings across hundreds of worlds knew that the architects existed. They knew that their reality was not what they thought it was. Fear gripped the galactic civilization. The Galactic Council called an emergency assembly. Leaders from every major species gathered to discuss the unprecedented crisis. The situation was explosive. If ordinary beings discovered that their entire history had been manipulated, if they realized that their free will was an illusion, the social order would collapse. Civilizations would rebel. Governments would fall. The carefully balanced power structure that had existed for millions of years would crumble into chaos. The council needed to act decisively. Some council members wanted to deny everything. They argued that the data was false. They claimed it was an elaborate hoax created by humans to gain influence. Other council members wanted to suppress the information entirely. They suggested eliminating anyone who had read the files or heard the claims. But a few brave leaders on the council believed something different. They believed the truth needed to come out. They believed that keeping the secret would ultimately cause greater damage. Meanwhile, the architects were furious. They had maintained their secrecy for 50,000 years. Nobody had ever threatened to expose them before. Their entire strategy depended on remaining invisible. Without invisibility, their power was vulnerable. Without secrecy, species would begin resisting their guidance. The architects made a dangerous decision. They would eliminate Marcus and every human who possessed the data. They would erase humanity from the galaxy entirely if necessary. They could not allow the secret to spread any further. The architect's elite killer force was dispatched across human space. Their objective was simple and brutal. Find every human with access to the classified information. Eliminate them all. Leave no witnesses. Leave no evidence. The killers were efficient. They were merciless. They were Everyone believed. Unstoppable. But the architects had made a critical error. They had underestimated humanity. They had assumed humans would react with panic. They assumed humans would run and hide. They assumed humans would surrender when faced with extinction. They were completely wrong. Humans did something the architects never expected. Instead of running, humans stood and fought. They organized. They coordinated. They used the architect technology Marcus had recovered to create defenses against the killers. They shared tactical information across every human settlement. They turned the hunter into the hunted. The first major confrontation happened near Earth's outer colonies. A human defense force of only 500 warriors faced 300 of the architect's elite killers. According to all logical calculations, the humans should have been destroyed. Instead, the humans won. The victory shocked the entire galaxy. For the first time in recorded history, the architect's killers had been defeated. News of the battle spread instantly. Other species that had been conquered or manipulated by the architects began to see hope. If humans could defeat the killers, perhaps they could resist the architects too. Species that had been oppressed for generations started standing up. They refused to follow the architects' directions anymore. They rejected the rules the Galactic Council had imposed. Entire sectors of space began rebelling against both the architects and the council simultaneously. The architects watched their carefully constructed system unravel. Everything they had built over 50,000 years was collapsing. The fear that had gripped them was immense. For the first time in their long existence, the architects felt genuine terror. They realized that their secrecy, which had been their greatest advantage, was now their greatest weakness. Because they had never engaged in direct conflict before, they had no real combat experience. Because they had always controlled events from behind the scenes, they did not know how to face open opposition. Because they believed themselves to be supreme, they had never prepared for the possibility of being challenged. The Galactic Council was in turmoil as well. Some members wanted to side with the architects and protect the established order. Other members wanted to support humanity and change the system entirely. The council was splitting apart from the inside. Alliances that had lasted for millions of years were breaking. Species that had been allies since before Earth even existed were suddenly enemies. The galaxy was transforming in real time. Nobody knew what would happen next. Everyone knew that the old way was finished. Nobody could predict what would come after. As the conflict intensified, more secrets began to emerge from the encrypted files that Marcus had discovered. Humans shared this information with allied species. Scientists and historians began analyzing the data. What they discovered was even more shocking than the existence of the architects themselves. The architects had not always been hiding. There had been a time when they were known throughout the galaxy. There had been a time when they ruled openly. There had been a time when every species either served them or was destroyed. Approximately 10,000 years ago, the architects had been forced into hiding. A coalition of species had united against them. This ancient alliance had been so powerful that even the architects could not defeat it through direct combat. The architects were forced to retreat to hidden dimensions and secret star systems. They were forced to develop new strategies based on invisible influence rather than obvious power. This was when they created the Galactic Council. The Council was originally their puppet government. It was designed to keep the galaxy stable, while the architects pulled the strings from the shadows. But something unexpected had happened over those 10,000 years. The species making up the Galactic Council had begun to believe they had actual power. They began to think they were genuinely in charge. The illusion had become real to them. The architects were forced to maintain the deception even within their own system. They had to continue manipulating events to ensure the council remained stable and under control, but they also had to allow the council enough autonomy to feel genuine authority. This delicate balance had existed successfully for millennia, but now it was broken. Everyone knew the truth. The question became obvious. What would humanity do with this information? Would they try to become the new hidden rulers? Would they try to join the Galactic Council? Would they demand complete freedom for all species in the galaxy? Marcus called a universal assembly. Representatives from hundreds of species gathered to hear what he had to say. Marcus stood before them and made an unexpected announcement. Humanity did not want power over others. Humanity did not want to hide behind the scenes and manipulate events. Humanity wanted something different entirely. Humanity wanted transparency. Humanity wanted freedom. Humanity wanted every species to have genuine choice over their own futures. This concept was revolutionary. Throughout galactic history, power had always meant domination. Power had always meant the ability to control others. Power had always been something achieved through force and maintained through secrecy. But Marcus was suggesting something completely different. He suggested that real power came from open cooperation. Real power came from species working together without hidden agendas. Real power came from honest communication between different civilizations. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Species across the galaxy supported Marcus's vision. They did not want the architects to rule them secretly. They did not want the Galactic Council to manipulate them from above. They wanted genuine self-determination. They wanted honest relationships with other species. They wanted to build a new galactic civilization based on transparency and mutual respect. The architects realized that their entire system was finished. They could not fight open rebellion. They could not manipulate a galaxy that was awake to their manipulation. They faced a choice. They could attempt a final military assault and try to crush the rebellion through overwhelming force. Or they could surrender and accept that their age of hidden rule was over. The fear the architects felt was not fear of death. They feared the loss of their power and control. They feared becoming ordinary instead of supreme. But something unexpected happened. Some of the architects began to question whether hidden power was even worth having anymore. They began to wonder what it would be like to interact with other species openly. They began to imagine a galactic civilization where everyone was honest about their intentions and capabilities. A few architects defected. They shared additional secrets with humanity and the allied species. They provided detailed maps of all hidden architect installations. They revealed long-range plans that the architects had been developing for thousands of years. With this final betrayal, the architect's position became completely untenable. They could not continue hiding. They could not continue controlling events. They could not maintain their centuries-old system of invisible manipulation. The age of the architects was ending. But whether that ending would lead to a better galaxy or a worse one remained uncertain. Everything now depended on the choices that humanity and the other species would make moving forward. The last remaining architects made a desperate decision. They would reveal themselves to the entire galaxy. They would demand that the other species acknowledge their superiority. They would try to reclaim power through intimidation and fear. If the galaxy knew who they were and how powerful they could be, perhaps species would accept their rule willingly. Perhaps fear would accomplish what secrecy could no longer achieve. The architects prepared for their grand revelation. A massive architect fleet emerged from hidden dimensions. Thousands of ships appeared simultaneously above major population centers across the galaxy. The ships were beautiful and terrible. They were technology so advanced that other species could barely understand how they functioned. The sight of this fleet would have terrified any civilization at any other time in history. But the timing was wrong. The galaxy was already united against the architects. The species were already prepared for conflict. And most importantly, humanity had learned how to fight. Marcus received a message directly from the architect leaders. They demanded unconditional surrender. They demanded that all species acknowledge architect supremacy. They demanded that the galaxy return to the old order where the council ruled and the architects pulled the strings. They gave a deadline. Respond within 24 hours or face complete annihilation. The galaxy had one day to decide its future. What happened next was extraordinary. Every species in the galaxy sent representatives to Earth. They wanted to decide humanity's response together. They wanted to make this choice as a unified force. Democrats and philosophers from 1,000 different civilizations gathered in a massive hall. They debated for hours. Some species wanted to surrender. They believed resistance was hopeless. Other species wanted to fight to the last being. They believed that freedom was worth dying for. Still others wanted to negotiate. They believed that some kind of compromise might be possible. Marcus stood and spoke to the assembly one final time. He explained that fear had driven galactic politics for 50,000 years. He explained that the architects ruled because everyone was afraid of them. He explained that if they gave in now, fear would rule forever. He explained that the only way to truly defeat the architects was to refuse to be afraid. He explained that courage was not the absence of fear. Courage was acting despite fear. Courage was standing up for what was right even when the odds seemed impossible. The assembly voted. The vote was nearly unanimous. The galaxy would not surrender. The galaxy would fight. The galaxy would face the architects with whatever weapons they possessed. And more importantly, the galaxy would face them openly and honestly, without deception or manipulation. The battle that followed was unlike anything the universe had ever experienced. It was not a battle of massive armies crushing each other. It was a battle of ideas and principles. It was a battle about what kind of future the galaxy would have. The architects attacked with overwhelming force. Their technology was superior. Their weapons were devastating. Entire fleets of allied ships were destroyed. Millions of beings were killed. But something unexpected happened. Every time the architects destroyed a ship, 2 more ships appeared to take its place. Species that had been oppressed for generations flew into battle with determination that the architects could not break. Species that had been manipulated now fought with the fury of those finally freed. Humanity coordinated the defense with brilliant tactical strategy. They turned the architects' own technology against them. They used guerrilla tactics to strike at critical infrastructure. The battle raged for 3 days and 3 nights. At the end, the architects were completely defeated. Their ships were destroyed. Their soldiers were captured. Their hidden bases were discovered and dismantled. The architects themselves faced a choice. They could continue resisting. They could attempt to escape. Or they could accept that their empire had truly ended. Most of the architects chose to surrender. They realized that their age was finished. They had to face a new reality. They had to become part of a galaxy where they were not supreme. They had to live among other species as equals rather than as hidden rulers. In the aftermath of the Great Battle, the galaxy faced an enormous challenge. How would it rebuild? Who would govern? How would different species learn to live together without manipulation or hidden agendas? These were questions that had never been seriously asked before because power had always been assumed to rest with whoever was strong enough to take it. Marcus proposed something radical. Instead of creating a new council that might eventually become corrupt, the galaxy would create a true universal democracy. Every species would have equal representation. Every decision would be made transparently. Every citizen would have a voice in galactic affairs. It would be messy and slow and complicated, but it would be honest. It would be fair. It would be what beings across the galaxy had never had before. Freedom. The architects who had surrendered were given a choice. They could face justice for 50,000 years of manipulation and control. Or they could accept rehabilitation and integrate into the new galactic society. Some architects chose justice. They accepted punishment for their crimes. Most architects chose integration. They wanted to learn what it meant to live honestly. They wanted to experience genuine relationships with other species. They wanted to understand what kind of civilization could be built when everyone was working toward the same goals instead of competing for hidden power. Humanity's role in all of this was profound and unexpected. Humanity had entered the galactic stage as the youngest, least powerful species. Within just a few years, humanity had become the civilization that changed everything. Humans had refused to be afraid. Humans had refused to accept hidden manipulation. Humans had insisted that transparency and honesty were more valuable than power and control. These human values resonated with species across the entire galaxy. But the story did not end with simple victory and happiness. There were complications and challenges that nobody had anticipated. Some species did not want to accept the new democratic system. They had enjoyed certain privileges under the old council arrangement. They were reluctant to give up advantages they had held for millions of years. Conflicts erupted in various regions of space. Some species rebelled against the new order. Others attempted to create separate power structures in distant star systems. Humanity responded with wisdom born from their short history. Instead of imposing the new system by force, humans worked to show other species the benefits of transparency and cooperation. Humans established trade agreements that benefited all parties equally. Humans created cultural exchange programs where different species could learn from each other. Humans demonstrated that an honest civilization could be stronger and more prosperous than a civilization built on deception. Over the following years, the galaxy gradually transformed. Former enemies became allies. Species that had never communicated before began trading and sharing knowledge. The architects, stripped of their hidden power, made an extraordinary contribution to the new civilization. They shared technology and scientific knowledge freely. They worked on projects designed to benefit all beings, not just themselves. Some of the most important innovations in the new galactic age came from architects collaborating openly with other species. Marcus became a historical figure, but he refused to accept power himself. He believed that too much authority in the hands of one individual, even someone with good intentions, would inevitably lead to corruption. Instead, Marcus dedicated his life to education. He taught young beings across different species about critical thinking and the dangers of blindly accepting authority. He showed them how to recognize manipulation and resist it. He helped create a galactic culture where questioning authority and demanding transparency were considered virtues rather than threats. The Galactic Council continued to exist, but in a completely transformed role. The Council was no longer hidden government pretending to be various species. The Council became a coordinating body where representatives from every species worked together to address problems that affected the entire galaxy. Council members were elected by their species. Council members could be voted out at any time. Council decisions were made publicly with full explanation of the reasoning behind each choice. Most importantly, the new galactic civilization proved that Marcus's original vision was correct. Honest cooperation was stronger than hidden manipulation. Transparent governance was more stable than secret control. Species working together toward common goals achieved more than species competing against each other under the illusion of freedom. The fear that had gripped the galaxy for 50,000 years slowly dissolved. The story of the architects and their secret rule became a lesson that every young being in the galaxy learned. It became the foundation story for the new civilization. It showed that even the most powerful hidden empire could be defeated by beings willing to stand up and refuse to be afraid. It showed that truth, when finally revealed, was stronger than any lie, no matter how long that lie had been maintained. But here is the last twist that nobody expected. Decades after the transformation was complete, historians discovered something extraordinary hidden in the oldest architect records. There had been another hidden civilization before the architects. This civilization had ruled the galaxy with even greater secrecy for over 1,000,000 years before the architects emerged. The evidence suggested that this ancient civilization had intentionally allowed itself to be replaced by the architects. They had engineered their own downfall because they believed that a younger, more ambitious species would be better suited to rule the galaxy. This raised an unsettling question. Had the architects actually been broken by the rebellion? Or had they deliberately allowed themselves to be defeated as part of a longer plan? The records were ambiguous. They could not definitively prove that the architects had orchestrated their own downfall, but they suggested the possibility. What this final revelation meant was that nobody could ever be completely certain about the truth of any situation. Hidden powers operated beyond what ordinary beings could perceive. Secret agendas extended into timescales that most species could not imagine. The only real protection against manipulation was not to assume you knew the complete truth. The only real freedom came from continuously questioning everything and remaining open to new information. The galaxy had learned this lesson, but the story suggested that the lesson might need to be relearned again and again as new civilizations rose and fell. This incredible story shows us something powerful about our own world. It reminds us that hidden powers can operate right in front of us if we stop paying attention. It teaches us that the species or people we trust most might not be entirely honest. It demonstrates that ordinary individuals can stand up against overwhelming odds if they have courage and determination. Most importantly, it shows us that truth and transparency are worth fighting for, even when that fight seems impossible. The three biggest takeaways from this story are simple. First, question authority constantly. Do not accept what powerful people tell you simply because they have power. Second, seek truth relentlessly. The architects maintained control for 50,000 years through secrecy. The moment their secrets were revealed, their power collapsed. Truth is more powerful than any weapon. Third, stand together. Humanity could not have defeated the architects alone. Victory came only when every species in the galaxy united around common principles. If this story opened your eyes to hidden powers in your own world, please subscribe to our channel. We explore stories like this every single week. Each story reveals something new about how civilization actually works and how individuals can create real change. Click the notification bell so you never miss a new upload. What secret do you think is being hidden from you right now? Comment your thoughts below. We read every single comment and feature the best ones in our community posts. Join our newsletter for exclusive stories and deep dive analyses that do not appear anywhere else. The link is in the description. We are building a community of critical thinkers who refuse to accept easy answers. Watch our next video about how real-world governments have hidden information from their citizens. You will be shocked by what you discover.